Lights, camera, action. Do you wonder how films are produced and what really goes on behind the scenes? Well, stand by. Filmmakers Kevin Mumphrey, Victoria V.A. Jones, and Carson Hype Ferguson, local filmmakers talking about the world of film, right here on F It, We Will Fix It in Post podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Whatever time you're listening, I thank you for doing so. I am Kevin Mumphrey, and this is F It, We Will Fix It in Post. I have my friends with me, Karsten Hype Ferguson.
Yo.
And Victoria V.A. Jones.
What's going on?
Today, we have another guest. She's a indie producer and director from the Memphis area who now has a new project currently called Election 2020. I introduce you all to Flo Gibbs. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me.
It is a pleasure. So first, I want to ask you, what got you into the world of film?
Oh, wow. What got me into the world of film? My passion for acting really is what really got me to really indulge to the world of film. Before film, it was stage, and I did that for some time. And then I went off disappeared into the music scene for about a decade and had a recording studio and was a sound engineer, audio engineer. And so I came back and jumped right back in with a documentary that we released probably back in, I believe, 2016, entitled Mentality Girls Like Us. So it was just my passion for acting is what really got me back into this thing.
So what was it about acting that you love so much that made you want to do it professionally?
Man, I remember I was like in the third grade, and I can't remember exactly what this play was about, but I was Priscilla, and I remember I was a pumpkin in the pumpkin patch. I do remember that. And it was the first time I ever hit stage, ever. It was just a little small school play, and I had a few speaking parts in it. And once I actually went through this thing, and we had rehearsed it a million times, but when the parents and all the people that we invited to actually come out and see this thing, it was just a different thing. It kind of felt like home. It kind of felt like, oh wow, this is what I want to do. But I had always kind of knew that, in a sense, just from watching television, like, oh, I want to be one of the people that I see on TV. And so, that was at a very young age. And so then third grade happened, that play happened, and it was like, wow, is this it? Like, yeah, I can definitely do this. And so I continued on, man, all the way up into college.
So when you did your first, when you played Priscilla, when you was first on stage, like, were you nervous or like overwhelmed or anything, or did it feel natural?
It felt natural, man. I'm gonna be honest with you, Kevin. It really felt natural. It was a bit different than I thought, but it felt natural. And of course, I like the attention at the time, and so it just felt natural. It felt like it wasn't one of those things where I was nervous or I didn't want. There were some kids that were crying as they were saying their lines, and I remember one. I swear to God, I remember one kid actually like peed, like whole front of his pants were wet.
Man, that was lit.
I do remember that.
That's like a scene from a movie for real, right there.
And I remember that, and he did not like that at all, but. It was a good thing, and I think it really opened me up to other possibilities. And then went on into middle school, and then we had something called Neighborhood Playwrights, and we did a film. Now that I actually think back, the film was actually kind of weird. It was like about slavery or something. So I went to a predominantly white school. It wasn't many people of color at that school, but yeah, I remember playing in that, and I was going to acting school to Carolyn's Finishing Academy, and she was my acting coach. She's actually still here, and she's still doing that same thing right now.
So, when you're around bunch of other kids who seemed nervous, did it kind of give you like a confidence boost? Like, oh yeah, I can do this.
I didn't understand. So, you know, I didn't understand. I was like, no, I think for me at that time, you know, it was like we've done this like 5 or 6 times in a week. We would rehearse this thing for at least, I mean, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And so when the people came, I mean, they were fine. Everybody was fine, right? And then it wasn't until the night where like our parents and people came to see it, where people kind of like started freaking out. But to me, it was just like, we've done this so many times. Like, how do you?
It's because of all the eyeballs.
Right. That's what it was. It's kind of like that, you know, fish being looked at in glass, you know. So it was kind of that thing for some of them. But I mean, there was me and a couple others that, you know, I remember going to acting school with and auditioning for different parts like after that. And that was kind of a jump off for a couple of us.
Okay, so as far as like, were you always good at like remembering lines?
Wow, was I always good at remembering lines? Yes and no. So I kind of like I perform best under pressure, or at least I think I do. And you know, I can remember so many times, man. Like it would be 2 or 3 days before I would cram all my lines, and it worked that way for me. I would just cram them. You know, we would have a lot of table reads and rehearsals and dress rehearsals and stuff like that, and I never do the lines. And it would only be about 2 or 3 days before, like, where I actually had to know the lines, and I would get it every time, man. I would get it every time. And then I went on in high school and participated in the Tennessee High School Speech and Debate Legend or League, where you do after dinner speaking and dramatic interpretation and solo acting, and I did that for quite some time. And I remember going to a small private school, very small private school, and I remember us going against Overton and Germantown. Those were the 2 schools that was really hard to beat here. And I was the only person in my school at that time. I actually had to convince one of the teachers to actually, you know, hey, I need an adult, and in order for me to be able to enter into these competitions. And so the school I was going to at the time, they didn't have any theater class or whatnot, and so I had to convince the teacher and to get him to be involved or whatever, so he could like sign off on everything. And he was like, "Yeah, whatever, I'll do it." And I ended up winning first place in the district, man. And I beat Overton High School. They had like about 50 folks. I beat every last one of them, all of Germantown. And I placed #1 here in Memphis for 2 consecutive years, top 25 in Tennessee. It was, yeah. And that's when I was like, okay. And so then my dad, he started really like investing in my craft, and he would take me all over for auditions. I would go to New Orleans and I would go to LA, and it was a journey for sure.
So your parents was always supportive of what you wanted to do?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No matter what it was, you know, if it was the piano or softball or soccer or basketball or acting, they were always supportive. And my dad was like my biggest cheerleader, especially with acting. You know, I would go out, do a couple auditions, and he would be like, okay, where are we going next? And so that was one thing that I really admired about him, is making sure that he supported me, and the cost that came along with supporting that as well, you know. And so, yeah, I was really lucky. I can't complain about any of that. Definitely can't.
That's dope.
So when you would audition for, when you were a child and auditioning, do you kind of remember any of these auditions at all?
Wow. Yeah, I actually do remember quite a few of them. Wow, yeah, I remember quite a few of them. And I would either get the part, or my dad didn't want me to take that particular part. There was a film that was actually here where it was a young black girl, and she would get sexually assaulted by a couple of grown white men. And my dad was like, "No, you're absolutely." And I got cast. Like, I went out and did the audition, and I wasn't really aware of what I was really auditioning for. I just remember my agent saying, "You need to be there," and so my dad went with me, and I was just like, "What?" so I read the lines, and I kind of had to do some through lining, and I did it. I got cast for the part, and I remember he was like, you're not gonna do that part. Nope, you're not gonna do it. So so that was the one that I remember the most. But then there was a few of them that I actually got and I actually wanted, and yeah, it was cool for sure.
So, what films were you watching growing up?
Wow, I wouldn't necessarily say film more than I would say like television, right? Moesha was like my favorite
Move to the.
TV show, and I was obsessed with Brandy. Like when I say obsessed, it was I don't know what was going through my mind
Look, I ain't
as
mad
a
at
teen,
you.
but I was obsessed with Brandy and everything affiliated with Moesha. My punishment was to take my television so I could not watch Moesha.
Oh
Okay,
man.
that's how bad this thing was.
Look, I'm gonna tell you right now. I wanted to be down. For real.
For real.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
that was just such a huge inspiration, and man, I still watch Moesha now, and I think back to those times, like, oh my God, like that was such a huge inspiration. She was young, she was black, and it was one of those shows that that I kind of like grew up with. You know what I mean? I felt like I grew up with
Right.
Moesha.
There was a
great.
lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot
It was a great
of
show.
girls who were, black females who were older. Moesha was one of my favorites. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of black females who looked up to that show, who watched that show faithfully. You know what I'm saying? And who were like, that was their thing. You know?
So
and not even just Brandy. I mean, Countess Vaughn and Shar Jackson. Just like seeing them. You know what I'm and Sheryl Lee Ralph, just seeing her, it was kind of like the Cosby for my time.
Right. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with you being do you watch? You say you watch it now. You can still kind of watch.
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I go on binge watches every now and again.
So with you
I go on
being
binge watches.
with you being a director, like, can you still watch it and be nostalgic, or are you looking at it in detail? Like, is it harder to watch now?
Some of my favorite stuff, I just watch it based off of just my admiration for whoever I'm watching, or the purpose of me watching it. Like, Steve Jobs is a really big inspiration for me. And so the other day I was watching Jobs, and for the 1,000th time, The Social Network is another movie that I really like. And so I watch those movies because those people, they were gifted, you know what I mean, in a way where most people didn't really understand at that time. And so when I watch those movies, it's really hard for me to critique them or to watch them other than just a fan, to be honest. And so I would say that would be the same with Moesha. It's like it's hard for me to watch it any other way than my love for Brandy, my love for, for me, when I watch Moesha, it's like I'm going back down memory lane, if that makes sense.
Like,
right?
My bad for stepping on you, but the Social Network is a technically sound movie, like top to bottom, from script to dialogue.
Yeah.
I'm a big, I like a lot of Aaron Sorkin stuff, and and then what's the director? Aaron Sorkin was the writer, right? And then the director was
You talking about for The Social Network?
yeah,
Yes.
for The Social Network.
I believe so.
Yeah, man, what was the writer's name? Then, either way, they teamed up very, very well together. I watched a bunch of those digital commentaries on them, and all the detail that goes into that is crazy. How much detail goes in that?
And then you're scripting out how the guy who runs Facebook, I keep forgetting his name. Zuckerberg. You're scripting out dialogue and how he talks. He doesn't talk like an everyday person.
No.
No, not at all.
So you're the man. That is
rough. I mean, and that's the same thing with Jobs, right? So that's the same thing with Jobs. It kind of has that same vibe as The Social Network in so many different ways.
I
I've seen The Social Network, but I haven't yet to see.
I can't remember which one Jobs was, because
you got it. Jobs.
I can't remember which one that was. Like, because I watched one a long time ago, and it was talking about Steve Jobs, and I was always fascinated with his story anyway. Like the audiobook was crazy. Like
I haven't. Yeah, listened to the audiobook.
It's long. It's very long, but it's crazy. I know one point in time they were talking about, like, I think he was like maybe 10, and him and his dad were like doing something, and it was like one of those crazy realization moments. And him and his dad looked at each other, and he was like, "It's that moment where he knew he was smarter than his father."
Oh,
that's crazy.
Because
I would love to see that. Because the movie kind of starts off with him as an adult, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Finding his way and in college is where it really starts.
I think it's really, really interesting to see how people take certain things from history and don't actually understand, and they think, oh, this is it. Like, people didn't know why he was an a-hole. Well, a lot of people that are super smart, they're maybe not as inclined to be, in touch with their feelings. So they don't necessarily have all the empathy that, a regular person would have or whatever, or understand. It took him basically his whole life to, glean what other people felt.
Oh, that's understandable. So that's what's wrong with me, huh? You know what I'm saying?
I guess we're going to keep that.
Though, Kevin. You said what now?
I guess we're keeping that since she said it.
Say what? I mean, people say I'm an ass, so I don't see it. You know what I'm saying? I don't see it.
Well, since we're bringing it all out in the open, you're kind of an asshole.
I mean,
you're a lovable one, but
you know what, man? Like, people want people to be what's quote unquote polite, and not like, and they don't respect direct people
or relatable. Like, people want to relate. Like, when you're watching your favorite show or your favorite film, like, whether you know it or not, subconsciously you're looking for, like, who's the most relatable person to you.
Yeah. And sometimes the a-hole is the most relatable person. how Vince Vaughn make all this money? Because I ain't like none of them early characters.
But like people up north are a lot more direct than Southerners. So because usually people I know in New York, they're very direct, and when you're not, it throws them off. So
I mean, like, but you can be polite without being too unrealistic, I guess. Like, is what I'm saying. Like, it gets to the point where people are being so quote unquote polite to where they're like they're not actually being accurate at the point in time.
That was come off as fake,
and it's not realistic. It's not real, right? It comes off phony.
Yeah. And I'm like, be like, hey man, I like those shoes. Like,
no, you don't.
No, you don't. I was like, I don't like these shoes.
So, Flo,
hey, Kevin, it's also one of those things too, man, where it's like, people say, how are you doing? Or I hope you have a good day. Do people really hope you have a good day?
Nope.
And like, do they really care how you're doing? Because like, if you're doing like shit and you're like, on the elevator and it's like, how's the day going? You just say it's going well. It's going good because we're programmed for that, man.
Right.
I had to stop that in 2010. Like, I had a conversation with a guy, and there was a dude. He stopped me in the hallway or whatever after I asked him how he's doing, and he really wanted to talk, and I ain't had nothing for him.
Yeah.
And then I walked away because I was like in a rush, and I was like, man, I feel like I like really like, and it was like, I said, you know what, I have to. Anytime I ask a question, I have to be ready, willing, and able to have a conversation after that. So I don't ask that question no more. Like, especially if I don't have no time, I'll be like, hello.
Yeah,
hello.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start doing that because for me, it's kind of like, and then I also, like, I guess you would say my day job is local government, and so it's just kind of like one of those things that you kind of get accustomed to saying. You have a lot of elevator rides and with a lot of folks, and how you doing is one of those things. It's one of those small talk moments that we really need to kind of look at to see, like, do you really care? Do you really have time?
And if I don't have the time, if I really don't care, I don't ask that question because you open up Pandora's box with some people. Because especially now, you got people that mostly throw up on you.
Right.
Oh,
I
was waiting.
See, that happened to me.
Wait a minute, go back. What did you say, Kevin? You said you have people mostly doing what now?
No, I'm saying that happened to me once. So my rule is I don't say how you doing unless I know you. Like, I'm gonna sit and stop because I've said that to somebody while I was like at an internship, and he went, Oh, I'm so glad someone asked. I went,
Say
shit.
what? No.
Like, oh shit, I'm in a trap.
That's when you make up an
He
excuse.
about to unload on you.
And he talked.
What do
through
you
my-
mean, VA make up an excuse?
Meaning like if you don't know this person, you know what I'm saying, and you really ain't got the time and you really just don't care, I'm gonna make an excuse up. I'm gonna let you talk for like a little bit, and then my next thing will be, oh, okay, for real. Well, you know what? I think it's time for me. I gotta go do this, or
I
you
gotta
know
take
what I'm
my
saying.
sleeping medicine.
I ain't gonna say that, but you know, you make up something to get out of the conversation because you know what I'm saying.
Right.
You don't really. You just don't want to hear all that.
And if you can't think of a lie,
my job, y'all, almost 40 hours a week is you know, I'm a counselor or therapist, and so you know, yeah, I listen to people's problems for a living. So you know, but I'm gonna be honest with you.
You want to do
it's
that on
not that
Saturday.
I don't care outside of that, but like I need stuff carrying a break from it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You want to hear that at Saturday at 3 in the afternoon.
No. Oh, no.
Like, you in a grocery store or whatever.
I'm keeping it real. I don't.
You in a grocery store, you know, you look at the chips and somebody just start having a random conversation with you.
Oh man!
Just stare awkwardly at them.
Yo.
That's not gonna work.
It has worked amazingly for me.
Oh my god!
But maybe being a 6 foot bald-headed black man helps. I don't know.
No, because they scared of you.
Good.
Like because I would go out dressed bummy. I had my hat all like low, look like I'm about to take something for somebody, and then it be looking like an old lady like come up and just start talking to me, and you be like, man, I would crack.
Wow.
I was like, man, I cannot. It's like, and it was always like these three ladies. Like one be like a little old Puerto Rican lady, one be like an old white lady, and one be like an old black lady, be like my grandma. And they be like, hey, how you doing, young man? And the little Puerto Rican lady over there had her accent. She's like, oh. I was like,
that was the accent?
No,
that was his definition of the accent.
No, I'm not gonna go all into it, man. Like people will cancel me, man. People cancel me out here. Yeah. I'll be out in these streets.
Sound like you bleeped yourself, so thank you. I don't have to work about that. So Flo, what made you go from being one to be on front of the camera to going behind the camera?
Yo, so okay, so I'm in high school. I have graduated. I've gotten accepted to UCLA on scholarship for acting, okay, and Pepperdine University, okay. And my whole dream is, as soon as I graduate, I'm going to move to LA, and that's where I'm going to be at. So my mom, my dad take me out there, find me an apartment and everything, right? I'm 17 years old. I come back to Memphis. I'm packing up. I'm taking everything. My Brandy posters down. I'm taking it. I'm like, okay, I'm finally going to LA. Like, this is about to happen for me. And my mom has a breakdown. It's just like, you know, that city's too big. You're too young. And so here was the trade-off. What can we do to keep you here? Right? What can we do to keep you here? And so my dad was, you know, no, let her go and spread her wings, blah, blah, blah. And my mom's like, no, let's see what we can do to keep her here. And so both of my parents are also real estate investors. And so they had a property that had been sitting for some years. And around that same time, that summer, I had met a couple of folks that were road managers. And that was doing a lot of stuff with like music and hip hop, and it was interesting. And so I kind of indulged in that for the summer. And I was like, you know what? Hey, I want to open up a recording studio. If you want me to stay, I want to open up a recording studio, and I want to do it at this property. And my dad was like, deal. And so I ended up staying here, and like he invested in that business for me. And I ended up going to the HBCU. Lemoyne College, and that's where I graduated from. And so I left acting alone completely, right? I had just completely, because I felt like I had done, you know how you kind of feel like you outgrow a space?
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I had outgrown Memphis, but I felt like where I wanted to be, I couldn't get there and in necessarily where Memphis was at and where I was at that time. And so I said, whatever, I go to school and I did that and I opened up the recording studio and I ended up staying and doing that for 10 years. And then I closed it down like in 2016, around that time. And then it was around what time did I meet you, VA? You had just graduated college, matter of fact.
Yeah, it was about 2012, 2013 probably.
Yeah, it was like 2012, 2013. Yeah, so I graduate Lemoyne. That's 2009. I go to grad school. I graduate UTK. That's 2011. And so I'm done with school, right? So now that thing that desire was like, okay, I need to get back into this some kind of way. And so I had been thinking about a documentary, just the concept and the idea for some time. And I think I actually met VA. She had posted, I think we met on Facebook, right?
I think so.
Right?
I think so.
The social network.
Yeah, we met on Facebook.
The social network.
Yeah, the social network, right. So she posted something or another. And I think I went to her page or whatever, and I was like, hey, it was an idea for a documentary I had for at least maybe a year. And turns out she had either just graduated or was about to graduate.
Something
and
like that.
She was like, yeah, it was something like that. And she was like, let's do it. And that was it. And that's what we did. It was just, let's do it. And so that was the story. And how that story really begun, I was really inspired by a small city, Marianna, Arkansas. So I graduate grad school. My first job is to take over a clinic in Marianna, Arkansas, where the population is about 5,000. Okay, and it's Marianna, not Marianna. Two different places. So Marianna is about 2 hours away, and so the pay was like unbelievable. And I was like, damn, do I really want to drive 2 hours to work? I think I will for this pay. And so I went there, and it was just it was kind of like Andy Griffith. Like, that's what it felt like. And I went down there, and I'm a lesbian, and I'm a masculine female, and so right off, I could tell that these people weren't really used to seeing that, because when you see me, you're like, okay, this is not a feminine girl. And so, these people weren't really used to seeing that. And so I'm like chasing down my clients because they don't have phones. So you have to roll up at the house and do all these different things. And I remember going to the high school, and I walked by a group of like teenage boys. And one of them said underneath their breath, "Is that a girl?" Is that a girl? And I was like, damn, I don't, I don't look like a dude, do I? And so I actually went back and kind of like engaged in that conversation with them. I was like, I heard what you said. And, and they just kind of looked at me, and I was like, yeah, I heard what you said. Yes, I am a girl. And they was like, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. We didn't mean anything by it. Da, 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 da. And so that happened one time. And then the next time it happened, same school. I go to the school because I would go to the school so I could try to, like, if the kids were really disruptive at school, if I had a client that was a child, and I would go to talk to the teachers to see if I could get them in the treatment plan and get them involved in the kids' treatment plan. And that's why I was there at the school. And then some other kid was like, sir, what? and at that time, I had just done the big chop, and I had started my lock journey. And so my hair was short. And so, it was like little small locks, and I was okay. And so I was like, man, these people, are there not any lesbians or any LGBT folks around here? And if it was, I don't think I ever seen, like, not once. Okay. And so I was like, okay, yeah, this is crazy. Let me get from this Andy. Oh, well, what really, at that point, I was speeding, because it's a 2-hour drive there and a 2-hour drive back. And I get pulled over by the cops, and, they were pretty polite or whatnot. And so I went to pay the ticket because it was like a little small courthouse. I go in with my credit card, and they tell me, no, you have to pay cash. So I'm like, okay, cool. I go to the ATM, and I know exactly, it's only one ATM in the entire town. I know exactly where it's at a gas station. And so I go there. Well, I tried to attempt to go there, and they said, oh no, you can't leave here until you pay. I'm like, well, I can't pay you until I can get to the ATM. And so like they didn't like put me in jail, but it was kind of like a little holding place. And I was just like, I gotta get the hell out of this place. And I was just like, yeah, these people are really weird. And I gotta get the hell out of this place. I quit like a week later or whatnot. But that's when I was like, let me do small town. I mean, small town. It's by, I think it's Hughes, Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken.
But you know, those small town dynamics is crazy anyway. They be like, especially you being an outsider, like that alone gets you.
And they find out you're from what they consider a big city.
Especially when they see those tags on your car.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they be trying to hit you up for little fees and stuff like that because you be like, oh, they passing through. We gonna get that little money.
Yeah. So that was my breaking point, and I wanted to tell the story without being. So your question was, how did I end up behind? So I wanted to tell the story, but I had no interest anymore in being in front of the camera. And so I said, well, let me tell a few people's stories, and let's make this a bit interesting. And let's tell it from the perspective of a lesbian, a stud, so to speak, that has a child, or maybe someone that's transitioning from female to male, or maybe someone that is Asian. And so that's what I did. So I got 3 women and 1 trans man, and we told the story. And it took us, how long, VA? Like at least a year and a half, maybe?
Yeah, it took us probably a year. You know what I'm saying? To get all the footage and everything else, and you got to keep in mind us going on those lovely adventures with some of those people.
Yeah, we had some fun.
So, like, how did you go about finding the people you wanted to use for your documentary?
Social media. At that time, I had checked out, from the whole acting and the whole thing. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to make a post. Let's see what happens. And it turns out that from that post, I didn't necessarily find, like, those people didn't contact me directly, but it was people that knew them.
Right.
It was like, hey, I know this girl named Ashley. Now she is turning into a he and going by Ashton. And, and then it was one of my good friends, is how we found Keita, was she would cut Keita's hair. And, and so, Keita's agent, so she was like, yep, I want to do it. I called them up. They was like, let's roll. And it was at that point in time, I kind of just really wanted to interview them and see if they would be interesting, like enough to even like talk about because the documentary ended up being like 3 hours long. And when it got picked up in the Indie Memphis Film Fest, they was like, listen, we love this, but we can't do 3 hours. And I think we shaved it off into like an hour and a half. So there's 2 different versions for it. So there's the Film Fest version and then the original version. But yeah, so we got in, interviewed them, just kind of got a bit of their history, their background, their life. Do they have an interesting story to tell? Like, everybody has a story, but is it interesting? You know what I mean? And I thought it was really cool to tell it from these different angles. So you're not just meeting one person and assuming that, all of these women that share this experience are the same. You get to hear these people that are having these similar experiences that come from different places and are part of different cultures. And I thought that was the interesting thing about it. And so we named it Mentality, based off the fact that sometimes masculine lesbians kind of have that thing where people assume that they want to be men or trying to be a man, that type of thing. It's one of those things. And so I named it Mentality, just so we could have a voice of what our mentality is and where we're coming from. And that's not necessarily true with all of us.
So when you found the people you wanted to use for your doc, so how did you go about, since this was being like your first documentary, far as outlining like what you was going to shoot, how much of their lives you planned on getting, and details like that?
I started off with just a phone conversation with each one of them because, like I said, I didn't know if they were interesting enough. And I was like, what do you do day to day? What do you like to do? Okay, well, you have a haircut. So how often do you get your haircut? Just little things like that, just to kind of see, like, where can we go shoot this stuff, right? And one of them was an entertainer or a female stripper, so to speak. And so I knew that she would be interesting if we could get some of her shows and stuff. Then she also indulged in drugs. That's a whole that's a whole nother boat. Wait a minute, let's stop right there. BA, you gotta tell them. You gotta tell them, man. You gotta tell them.
I mean, listen.
Please,
okay.
Please go. Please do.
You've never seen people like do hard drugs unless you've seen it in the movies, right? Like a regular, day-to-day life. You know what I'm saying? Okay, you might have seen that, but like a regular day-to-day, I've never seen somebody do it. Let's just put it that way.
I had neither. Like
it will flip you out.
Okay. But me personally and Flo, we've never seen that personally in person. I know people who've done it. I've seen people on it and seen the effects.
So it's kind of like the Cat Williams skit when it goes like they're just sniffing cocaine while having a meeting. He's like, man, I'm right in front of you.
Like literally.
Right.
Yes. And we didn't know. See, the thing about it is like we were filming this thing, like we knew, okay, well, Keto wants to meet at the studio and we're gonna talk about her her family moving from Laos to America, right? And how she is received or rejected by her family. Like we knew, okay, we didn't really know the story. Like we had questions, right? Like we're having this interview now. You don't know what I'm going to say, but you have an idea, right? And so it's pretty much the same way. We walked into a situation at some apartments and like they found the release forms or whatnot. And then after they did that, we kind of pretty much like,
it's a celebration. It's a celebration after you sign release forms.
It was, I don't know what the hell was going on, man. Listen, I never seen it in my life. And so when I saw it, and the crazy thing about it is she talked about it, but she never said, come on over, I'm going to actually do this on, on film, right? And then a couple of them, like later on, because it was friends that were doing it with her, a couple of them, like months later, was like, hey, can you like, I know I signed a release form, but, I was kind of like not really thinking and I really have a job type thing. So out of respect for that, and I could respect that, I didn't show them. But Yellow Man definitely was, yeah.
And it was a thing of, when I walked in, like I saw it on the counter and I'm like, I know that's not what I think it is. And I'm thinking, oh, they probably already did it. So I ain't got to worry about it. It's probably in their system.
And they
said,
already surprise.
Did it. So if you watch the documentary, there's a one part where literally she's she takes I don't know if it was $1 bill. It was some money.
It was $1 bill.
Puts it in the money, folds it over, does whatever she's doing, opens it back up. She either had her ID or her credit card. I can't remember.
It was her ID.
Yes, she lined it up. It was like in the movie. And I'm like,
it threw up a thumbs up at the end.
Yeah.
It threw up a thumbs up at the end.
Threw a thumbs
up. While she sniffs it, puts it.
Oh, there ain't no props here.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like,
this ain't flour.
But here's the thing is like, I know her, right? And like at that time, I don't really know her anymore now than I did then. But I knew somewhat of her at that time. And I didn't have any idea, And so it was one of those things where I'm like, okay. Wow, that's different. That's real different. I didn't know you were going to do that, But then when you talk to her, like beyond that and even before that, it's just like she's really functioning, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, these people aren't functioning that, do this. And, like that you can tell they're high.
Right.
And she had said that she had been high on several encounters with us, but I never could tell. And I only think the reason we knew then VA was because she had actually done it. We saw her do it.
Yeah.
Plus, they were like smoking and drinking, so they had a few things going on at the same time. But I mean, she's a cool person. She's an entertainer. She's a performer. I think she lives out in Dallas now, and she travels everywhere performing and dancing.
Yeah.
And she's married as well too. She got married in the middle of this thing.
Life of the party, huh?
Yeah, life of the party. Yeah, and she was the only one that had that story, And then there was Liz, the survivor, who had been a survivor of rape all her life, And her mother. One thing I really liked about Liz's story was one of my favorite stories because it was like I could feel it. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I knew Liz through, like, it was something about her eyes and the way she would tell her story and her experiences. I think there was like a time or two. I don't know if VA will admit to it. I think she teared up one time too, but I know I did for sure.
I probably did.
Yeah, man. Yeah, she had a child that was a product of rape. Didn't know who the father was. She also had a drug problem, and she also had some mental health issues as well. But she was also a musician.
She was a good musician, though.
She was a damn good musician. Yes, she was.
Really
good.
And
she played football. She played football. That was interesting. We went out to her game and interviewed her coach. And that was, she, and since then, she's had another child. And I believe that child might also, well, I'm not going to speak on that because I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that child. So, but she suffered a lot. And for her to still be going and still thriving was just like, who am I to complain about anything?
Right.
That's how I felt about Lizzie G. And that's what we said, Lizzie G, the survivor. That's what we gave her. And then the one we were just talking about with the drug use is Yellow Man, the entertainer. And we had Keita, Asian Persuasion, and then Ashton, the trans man. And that was also an interesting story because we caught Ashton as Ashley, or just turning into Ashton, and or transitioning into Ashton. And a lot of what we're seeing now was like the trans community, like back then, wasn't as popping. I'm not gonna say popping, but it wasn't as visible. Yeah, like we weren't talking about it out, in the public as we are now. And so to see that then, it was just kind of like, okay, I'm learning, as being the L in the LGBT community. I didn't know half of the stuff that I learned just from like Ashton's story and her getting, top and bottom surgery and what she went through. And, she came from a family that appeared to be well off, and she went to private schools, and, that whole thing. It was crazy. It was crazy. Sometimes I go back and I look and see what these people are doing now. I think Keita, she's now moved to New York, and I think Ashton is maybe in North or South Carolina now. Everybody's moved now that I think about it, but except for Lizzie G. She's still here. Yeah. And she got locked up a couple of times in the middle of the documentary, which is crazy. And so we would have to wait for her to return. And she had a couple of manic episodes, if I can remember correctly. But yeah, that was crazy. And then we wanted to try to see if we could go inside of Jail East and film, and it was just so much red tape to go through to get there. And so, at that time, it's like, I don't have that much experience. And I'm even now still learning, you know what I mean? But at that time, definitely, I didn't have that much experience on like, okay, how do we get through all of this red tape? And by the time we would get through it, she would be released anyways. So we just kind of like waited it out.
So from like, as far as just the shooting aspect, so how long did that take you all?
About a year.
Yeah,
What would you say? Yeah, you answer that one.
I'm gonna be real with you. It might have been a year. I'm not for certain like how long. I just remember, you saying, "Hey, we got this day to shoot." All right, cool. where I need to meet you at.
That's pretty much how we worked. Like, we vibed that whole project. It was, let's see, so of course VA was DP, and then we also had Network, which was a camera operator on it as well. And so it would be pretty much like, because their schedules were really crazy. And the thing was, we were fighting to try to get them all at one place at the same time, and we never could.
Right.
It would always be a reason we couldn't do that, like all four of them at the same time. And so that's the only thing I regret is like trying to at least try to get them all at the same place at the same time, at least just for a photo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or group discussion, and we never did get that. It was one was locked up, or this one was going out of town to perform or work for this one. And then we had two other, I don't know if we would call them extras, but a good friend of mine, Nikki, who told her story of being in a family of Jehovah's Witnesses, and she was a lesbian. And then we also had what's her name? The white girl that raps.
Oh yeah, Tori, who that?
Yeah, her. So we told a bit of her story as well too.
So with shooting this, at what point did you go, okay, this is a stopping point?
No, we shot till we thought we had enough, didn't we?
Yes. Yes.
And actually, we had more than enough.
A long time ago. You sure ain't lying, man.
So by the time y'all was done, y'all went.
We had a lot to choose from.
And the thing was, like, honestly, for me, even though we shot that long, months or whatever, to me, it didn't seem like we shot that long. You know what I'm saying?
Because we're telling four individual stories.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really made it seem like, to kind of break up the monotony, was like, okay, we're going to shoot Ashton. Today is Monday. We're going to shoot Ashton. And then we might not shoot anything else for like another week and a half. And it might be Keita this time.
Right.
And so that lasts for like, to me, it lasts maybe just a bit over a year. And then it took about that much time for me to actually like really go through all of the footage and to figure out like how we're gonna actually tell the stories, because there was at one point in time I said, you know what, we're gonna do this in parts because we had so much, and we'll do this like, we're gonna release 30 minutes of this, and then we'll come back and like just kind of like a show, and I was like, nah, let's not do it that way. Let's keep it the way that we had it. And it turned out to be a 3-hour long. It could have been longer, but the 3-hour mark was already too long. But we touched so many people, man, like all over the world. Like, I still have people that hit me up now, like from all over this country and other countries, from Africa and everywhere. It's just like, this helped them break through, or they were able to show a family member how they felt through this, through this documentary. And so it's been embraced, and it's awesome, And then Memphis, Indie Memphis Film Fest, they picked it up right when we finished it, actually. In 2016, I got a call, and they said, hey, we love it, but it's too long. Shave off an hour and a half of this thing. And then Out Memphis Film Festival also was interested in it at the same time. And so I think at that time I came to Victoria and was like, listen, VA, we got to figure out, like, do we go Indie Memphis or do we do Out Memphis? And I didn't necessarily think that we should choose Out Memphis based on the fact that, it's an LGBT organization. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like just because it was that. I knew that it would probably be embraced a different way. But the fact that Indie Memphis, that's not, I felt like we could reach
a lot more people,
whole different audience. Yeah, a different audience, and maybe change or influence some of their perspectives. Where Out Memphis, it's LGBT ran, it's an LGBT organization. They're going to be showing LGBT films, and that was a comfort zone for it. And so Indie Memphis was like, okay, it's broader, it's a bit bigger, and then we'll get the opportunity to influence some people and impact some people that we might not otherwise have been able to do if we just went Out Memphis. But I appreciate Out Memphis and their support for it and everything. Yeah, definitely.
So, how do you feel like after making this film, and now you're seeing, like you said, you've got people from Africa, And it was a story at that time. I don't think it was hardly show. I think maybe the only thing you might have had at that time was like what, the L Word, maybe.
Yeah, I think the L Word was still going during that time.
Orange is the New Black was out too, wasn't it?
16, yeah.
I
That was
think
first
so.
season. That was
I
first
think
season.
so.
First season of Orange is
Yeah,
New Black.
yeah. Sure was. Yeah, it was out at that time. But what was the question you said? How did I feel about it?
Felt about the impact of it, like people who are not used to seeing people in the LGTB community. They're getting to see them as people. They get to see them as everyday people, see their lives. And the kind of how do you feel about the impact that you've made making that documentary?
Man, I'm a we person. I don't do the eyes. And so I feel like the impact we made together as a team, and especially them individually, people, would make comments about just them as individuals. And I would get the phone call or either see the comment, because, I made sure all of their social media stuff was attached to it. They've changed some stuff since then, of course, but at that time I made sure their social media and stuff was attached to it so that if people wanted to reach out to them, they could. And so the viewers had an opportunity to reach out to them and not necessarily me. And that's what they did. And it was amazing. Like, I think there was a video of a girl crying, saying that she felt like Ashton her whole life, and that she was ready to, start her transition, and she was sure. That was touching for sure. And then, you always have the assholes and idiots to say, what are they? Kill them. They should be burning. Like, you can literally see some of this shit still in the comments. I probably should go in and erase some of this stuff, but I feel like if I do that, then it's not real. Do you know what I mean? Like, people need to see what people are saying. I want them to see what it is in its rawness, and to see how, like, where we, were and where we've come from that and where we're still going as a community. And so it's important to still see that ugly. It's just kind of like the same with racism, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's one of those things. But I felt, like I couldn't believe it, especially with really no experience, and really depending on Victoria to really help guide in some way. And she did exactly that. And so, that was, I hadn't really had that type of experience with a documentary. That was the first documentary I had ever done. I don't even know if that was the first one.
Yeah.
It was. But we kicked ass.
You know what I'm saying?
We kicked ass.
No, I went into that project like, not knowing. And for me, that was good too, because I was learning at the same time. So me going into the project, not knowing what was going, not knowing how it was going to go. I never done a documentary before. I just finished all these student films and projects and stuff like that, and that's the only thing I had under my belt. It was actually cool for me to go and us to do it, and me to, for both of us to try to figure stuff out and put stuff together and learn at the same time. Like, that was a cool thing for me.
For me, since I watch a lot of documentaries, I think those are the best documentaries where the person making the documentary is not trying to lead you or anything like that, and just natural questions arise, and you get all this information or whatever, and you determine what you want to take from it. It's not a predetermined it's not a predetermined thing, and I think that makes for a better documentaries. Yeah.
But the thing, what VA's not saying too, is like, the bonus on it was the fact that she just got from school. So, like, everything she learned, I knew that she was going to throw at this project. And our personalities and the way we work and our work ethic match, because we didn't know each other at all. You know what I'm saying? So I had to give her a certain amount of trust and kind of let her lead on some things, and vice versa. And so it was kind of like, hey, Flo, let's do it this way. Da da da, and I was, okay, let's roll with that, or I say, hey, VA, why don't we try this time? She's like, okay, let's roll with it. And and that lasted for a year. Like, I don't think we clashed the entire year.
No,
ever.
No, but there's certain personalities. Unless you're gonna be like kind of rah, she's gonna leave you to your own devices.
Right.
Yeah. You say something crazy.
But you expect difficulties, right? Like, I expect some level of difficulty, right? Not necessarily even with an attitude or, different personalities, but, it was none. Like everything was always smooth. And, at least it appeared that way to me.
Well, I mean, making a movie's hard enough. Why do people got to make it hard?
Right, exactly. Why do people got? And I think a lot of that too was that it was our first time too, doing a documentary, and so it was just kind of like, okay, let's just do it. And that's what we did. I remember the time we went. I know you do too. Yeah, when we went to, I think Ashton was getting a tattoo, and we went to the tattoo shop.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like even things that it was like, okay, let's go. We're gonna film this at the tattoo shop, okay? And because we didn't want everything to be in a room, right? We could have just said, okay, we're gonna shoot everything. Everybody comes this day, this time, and then we're just gonna have them in this chair. No, we want to get them like in their life, and that's the importance, I think, of a documentary. And so she's like, hey, you guys, we're gonna go get a tattoo. You want to ask me a couple of questions while I'm getting a tattoo? And so that was what we went in. Saying, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to ask for these questions. And then it turned into a thing where the tattoo artist kind of was like asking questions too, like questions that we didn't even think about.
Right.
That was an interesting thing. And it was just like, okay. And we kept all of that in.
So, like, if you end up doing another documentary, what would you take from, like, lessons that you learned doing that first documentary, like things that you would not do if you did another documentary?
Not taking you to shoot it. I think so, but you know what? I say that now, hindsight, like I didn't even have a problem with that. But now, looking back, I probably would have, if this makes sense, have a bit more scripted. A bit, if that makes sense, right?
Like
so a bit more, not even scripted, structured, a bit more structured. Where I just allowed them to call me to say, hey, I'm going to get a haircut, or hey, we're going to have a party at my house tonight, or hey, I'm going to go get a tattoo, or hey, I'm out of jail, I'm at my mom's house this weekend, and I'm going to have my daughter with me. But I think for what we were doing at that time, that's what we needed. We didn't need a structure like I would probably move forward and do. And I probably wouldn't focus on so many different, I guess, lives or stories. Probably would focus probably more so on 2. Then we did 4, then we had 2 additional. That was kind of interesting. So yeah, I probably would have just took those 2 out and just stuck with the 4. So yeah, if I do it again, which I'm actually planning on doing it again with another friend of mine, he has a really cool idea, and yeah, that's probably what we'll do for that one. And it's just about the history of a few different things here in Memphis, and yeah, it'll be a bit more structured for sure.
Okay, now I want to kind of go on to your current project. So, what motivated you to make Election 2020?
Whew, man, so the political climate, the racial tension in America, as of the last 4 years. Well, I mean, we've always had it, but the last 4 years was just a bit different. And just working from home, being blessed and thankful that I, was still employed and could work from home, and continue also my business from home as well. It was one of those things where I just had CNN on all the time. And so my wife and I, we would, we talk politics all the time, and we have a slightly different view, but it's not that much different. But, I'm a bit more conservative than she is. And so, we just talking or whatever. And I think this was a time where I think it was early voting, actually, to be exact. And it was the first day of early voting. I took my ass out there to early vote. And also, as soon as I saw the line, I got right out. Man, this is the first day of early voting. Man, and then it turns out it was like the biggest turnout in our city ever. And I went the second day and it was a bit better. And I was like, hey, let's do a short film. And it was really, hey, let's write a story is really what it was, let's write a story about the election. And we had actually sat down to write the story for a white couple. And it wasn't until later on when we was like, okay, let's actually turn this into a short film. and actually do a real script to this thing. And I reached out to, I think I like text VA and was like, hey, I want to do da 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 da, and I want you to be DP on this. Like, what's up? And she was like, cool. Here are my available dates, and we went. And that's pretty much how that happened. But in that, later on we revisited it, and I was like, you know what, the relevancy of it is important to capture it now. In 6 months from now, I'm not going to say people aren't going to care, but is that story going to be as relevant as it is now, right? And so it was just like, hey, you know what? I don't think I can cast an all-white cast. I don't know a whole bunch of white actors or actresses. Now, I mean, I can go and find them, but I need to cast this thing now. And so I hit her up. At that time, I think I actually picked up the phone and called UVA and was like, hey, do you think this would be more interesting if we told this story as Black Republicans?
And I said, hell yes. Have you ever seen the film with Black Republicans? I have not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, and it kind of takes away that whole, like, Black people being a monolith thing. And there's a stigma associated with being other, even in our class.
Right.
And Black Republicans are somewhat seen as either ignored or they just feel like outcast. Yeah, sellouts.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, like it's funny too. It's not. It doesn't fit the narrative on either side. So they're like castigated by one side, and the other side is just like whatever. It's like like a trophy or something like that in some aspects. Because I would never say that I was that I probably lean more libertarian than anything, but even that kind of gets you like you're different.
I almost feel like you're walking on thin ice.
You're different. Hey, you want to come to this meeting? Like, nah, I don't. Nah, I really don't. I just want you to leave me. I just want you to leave me alone.
Yeah.
But so like you were saying, like the last presidency caused like many divisions among friends, families, coworkers, classmates, basically all types of social dynamics. So what was it that made you chose to use a husband and wife to tell your story?
Well, it was actually going to be a family. Husband, wife, and child. They had a son. But, I said we're doing this during COVID. They also had a group of friends, more than Mike and Denise, that came over during election night. And so realistically, I said, listen, I'm a caregiver for my mom. She's battling stage 4 cancer. And so I'm like, I can't afford to get sick. Who's going to take care of her? And, she can't afford to get sick because she definitely won't make it through it, I don't think. And so it was just kind of one of those things where, okay, let's look at this picture. And then I talking to VA was like, listen, you need to try to keep this thing as small as possible. And I totally agree. Dawn totally agreed. And we just started chopping. We just started chopping people off. Characters just died right then because we didn't want to die. So it was just like, we need to make this environment as safe as possible. And so it just ended up being a Black couple that is having another Black couple over for election night, and we just kept it that way. Oh, and then of course we had the visitor, the knock at the front door, which was Gloria, played by Sybil Presley, and so she, was the only white person, and I actually liked that addition to the story because it kind of gave it a bit of a balance to it, just a bit of a balance to it. And it made it seem a bit more realistic, I think.
So how did you go about the process of finding your actors?
Did a casting call. And so I did a casting call online. And I knew that we needed to be shooting this thing within a couple of weeks. I think it was like 3 weeks. And so we did a casting call, and I just did everything online. I did the auditions online and everything. So they had instructions on how to download the audition script and how to do their video and where to send it. And then, they had a deadline of when they needed to have it in if they're going to audition. and we just went through them. And we went through them, and I was like, yeah, this one should definitely be Erica, and this one should definitely be Mir. And yeah, so we had about 25 people, about 25, almost 25 folks to actually audition. And it was a cast of 5 total.
Which they all worked out, you know what I'm saying? They all did phenomenal jobs, and you know, it worked out so well.
It did. And it's crazy because Erica, who plays, Katrina, who plays Erica, when I saw her audition, it was like, this is Erica. And so I showed it to Dawn. I was like, this is Erica. She's like, you think so? I was like, look at this audition, you know. And she said, oh yeah, definitely. I said, I'm gonna shoot it for VA. And I I think I sent the video, a screenshot or something to VA. And I was like, oh, you know, I think I want this, you know, this to actually, you know, play Erica. And she started laughing. You know, she texted back. She was like, that's my cousin. I was like, you lie. She's like, I swear to God.
Yeah.
I was like, you serious? She was like, yeah. So I was just like, okay, yeah, this thing is definitely meant to happen. So yeah, it was cool. And it was like all strangers, you know, other than, of course, them two being cousins. And VA and I knowing each other, everybody else was strangers. And we had like an awesome time. You know,
Right. It was all good vibes on the set. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All good vibes. Definitely all good vibes.
So, like, how long, as far as shooting, how long did it take you all to shoot it?
2 days. So we shot it the 26th and the 27th, the day after Christmas, that weekend. 2 days. But we started at like 8 o'clock that morning and went to like 1 o'clock in the morning.
I think that first day was like until like 10 or 11. I think the second day I didn't leave until like 1 o'clock. So it was 2 full days of shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And the shoot was, for the most part, a smooth shoot?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, it was. It was hassle free, so to speak. We had a lot to do in 2 days, but we literally came in, got to work, made sure everybody had enough food and snacks, and you know, and we had an area just for everybody, you know, with couches and stuff where they could just kind of like chill, cast and everything. And then the crew, we had our own space. And I mean, here's the thing, is that initially it was supposed to be me renting a Airbnb, okay? And I did. It was like 2-3 days before the shoot that I got an email from them saying that they had to cancel it for unforeseen reasons, so to speak. And so then we had to kind of like, okay, where are we going to shoot this thing? And so we actually ended up shooting it at my house. So I had to get that prepared quickly. And but it worked out. And you know what? I'm actually glad that we did it that way, because it also freed up like coins for promotion and marketing. So I'm not mad about that. At that time, I was just kind of like, what? Because at that time, I think in a year, maybe VA had been the second guest he had it at home. You know, and so literally he had just moved into this house like a year prior. So yeah, so we actually moved in 2019. And so the end of or summer 2019. And so yeah, she was the second guest we had over, you know. And so to go from that to COVID and having like 8, 9, 10, 11 of us, you know, because we had the cast and the crew, I was just kind of like, okay, you know. But I'm glad, you know, it worked out the way it did, and everybody was just super creative and humble, and it was like family. It definitely was like family.
Okay, now that you have the project shot, finished, and pretty much done, so how are you planning on going about the process of curating an audience for this film?
So what we're doing now is, you know, I was thinking of some video on demand stuff, but what we're gonna do, or what we're actually doing, is film festivals. And so we released this thing for the first private screening was on January the 20th, and that's why it was so important for us to get this thing done, to get it edited and everything, is because that was inauguration. And so it was special for it to be not necessarily released, but for the first private screening that day. And so we made it. We had the first private screening. We had like over 100 people to actually attend that. And that was really awesome. And then we said we're going to do film festivals because, they have so many different strict rules and policies on how it's premiered and where it's seen and is it available. And I didn't want for us to be disqualified or miss an opportunity because, we just kind of released it. And so I was very careful with doing that. And so we did a private screening on the 20th. And that same day, the Mid-South Black Film Festival had made it also official 2021 selection for them. And so that was the first film festival the same day of the private screening. And then since then, we have Prague. It has made it. The Prague International Film Festival has made it a 2021 selection, and then I think it's the Golden Short Film Festival in Italy has also made it 2021 official selection for them as well. And so we are still waiting to hear from everybody else.
So you're telling your story about Black Republicans all over the world.
Yes. You know what? And that's all I care about, right?
Right.
I mean, that story isn't as familiar. And, it's a short film. It's 20 minutes long. We wanted to kind of, initially it was going to be about 35 minutes long, but we kept it at 20 minutes long. And it's awesome. We have our second private, and I think our last, but it's our second and last private screening is going to be on February the 6th. And so it's an all-day screening. If folks are interested in seeing it, they can just go to Election 2020 and it's Election 2020-movie.com. And then they can just send a request for the passcode for that day. And then they'll be emailed the passcode and they can watch it as many times as they want. And the crazy thing about it is that this second screening, a lot of folks from the first time are signing back up to watch it again for the second time. And then that'll be it for a minute, at least for another 6-7 months until we get through all the film festivals. I don't want to keep showing it. And I'm really, not that overjoyed and, about trying to show it the 6th, especially with the Mid-South Black Film Festival showing it the 22nd through the 28th. So that needs to be the last one so that it can do what it needs to do in the film festival arena without us, constantly exposing it.
So it seems like you have a kind of knack for telling stories that aren't normally told. Do you feel like that's a route you want to go as a filmmaker?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Controversial stories. And just stories that aren't usually told. Or maybe it's the story that we're familiar with, right? But it's not necessarily, we're not, seeing a Black cast isn't seen that way or in those roles. And so, yeah, that's definitely something that I definitely want to continue on. And just some stuff that's thought provoking. Just make people kind of think outside the box just a bit, not too much.
Not telling the same story the exact same way. For I'm a Puff Daddy now. I'll be like, yo, we invented a remix. I was like, there's something special. There's something special about coming from a different angle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I tell people all the time, I live in a remix.
You live in the
remix. I live in the remix.
So I'm gonna end it with this last question for you. For somebody that wanted to started in making films, like what would you advise them?
To shut up and listen. And be around people that know more than you. Even if they're not that great, but they know more. Put yourself in a position where you're in a place where you can learn and watch and learn. Ask questions. I tell folks all the time is, if you have a story, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you got to start somewhere, right?
Right.
And so just start, even if it doesn't turn out the way you want it. But the biggest thing is to be quiet, listen, and find you a mentor or find someone that has some experience, even if it's not a whole bunch more than you, but they have more than you, and it's a starting point. Just start and keep going. It doesn't matter. Don't be intimidated. Keep telling your stories and just keep telling them. and until you get to the place where it's like second nature, right? And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's like we have another film that we're shooting next month called Happy. And so, Tyler Perry, a lot of folks have their feelings about Tyler Perry, but as a businessman and what he has done, with his studio, with his production company, is an inspiration for me. And he likes to recycle talent. And so that's my plan, is to recycle talent. And especially the folks that are seen in election 2020 will be seen in many more to come of my work anyway.
Respect the hustle.
I believe in loyalty, and so I want to kind of stay loyal to the same folks. There's actors, they have great, incredible talent, and they have great personalities. I think that's one of the most important things. And then it'll also allow me to be able to grow as a director as well.
Maybe that's what you took from the stage piece, because a lot of acting troupes would go from place to place, and you see, like, even in Hollywood, there's like little what do you call it, little groups or whatever, people that kind of hang together. You see, like, this actor, this director, they're always doing that, or this writer, this
like
director.
Adam Sandler has his troupe.
Yeah, like even if you went down to like the Lonely Island, them cats. Because I met the dude that does the editing for SNL. I went to one of the workshops up in Indianapolis.
Okay.
And my man, he said, man, I would love to do their stuff, but they're all in house. So they got people that they came up with, and they like, yo, we made sure to put our boys on.
Yeah, I think that's important, right?
Yeah.
Because especially when you're like on the indie level, right? Because like it allows you know what you're getting yourself into. And I've heard like so many horror stories, like even with the cast for election 2020, they was like, oh, Flo, I went to this and it was crazy and disarray and everything was right. And so I was listening to those stories, I was like, really? Wow, okay. And so I'm glad that I'm not, headed that way. But another thing I would say is professionalism. Like, be professional. Keep that at the forefront. Be professional. Get the releases signed. Have a protocol. Have some structure, and set a standard too early on.
That's what people want.
People will respect you.
That's what people
will
want.
respect you.
People want that.
Yeah.
They want that.
Yeah.
Well, Flo, I would like to thank you for taking time out to talking to us today.
Most definitely.
Yes.
It has been a pleasure.
I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, no. It has been a pleasure. This is Kevin Mumphrey and Victoria V.A. Jones and Karsten Hype Ferguson.
Yep.
And this is We'll Fix It in Post, and that is a wrap.